Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among rolling hills, there lived a curious and lively boy named Oliver. He was known throughout the village for his insatiable appetite, especially when it came to sweets and nuts. His mother often warned him about the dangers of greed, but Oliver would just laugh it off, too excited by his next adventure. One sunny afternoon, while exploring the edge of the forest, Oliver stumbled upon a small, hollow tree trunk. Peeking inside, he discovered a large jar filled to the brim with filberts, his favorite nuts. His eyes widened with excitement, and his mouth began to water. Without a second thought, he reached into the jar and grabbed as many filberts as his hand could hold. But when he tried to pull his hand out, he found it stuck. The mouth of the jar was too narrow to let his fistful of filberts through. He tugged and pulled, but the more he struggled, the tighter his hand seemed to be caught. Frustrated, Oliver sat down, his hand still trapped in the jar. A wise old woman, who happened to be passing by, noticed his plight and stopped to help. "What seems to be the problem, young man?" she asked gently. "My hand is stuck," Oliver cried. "I can't get it out." The old woman peered into the jar and chuckled softly. "It seems you've been a bit greedy, my dear. You're holding too many filberts at once." "But I want them all," Oliver insisted, frowning. The woman smiled kindly and shook her head. "Sometimes, when we try to take too much, we end up with nothing. Let go of some of the nuts, and your hand will come free." Oliver hesitated, his love for the filberts battling with his desire to be free. Finally, realizing he had no choice, he released some of the nuts, keeping only a few in his hand. As he did, his hand slid easily out of the jar. Relieved, Oliver looked at the handful of filberts he had managed to keep. "I guess this is enough," he said sheepishly, finally understanding the old woman's words. The old woman patted him on the head and smiled. "There's always enough for those who know when to let go. Remember, a little can go a long way." From that day on, Oliver learned to appreciate what he had rather than always wanting more. He became known not just for his adventures, but also for his wisdom in sharing and enjoying things in moderation. And every time he saw a jar of filberts, he was reminded of the lesson he had learned that day. The village loved to tell the story of Oliver and the filberts, teaching their children the value of knowing when to be content and the dangers of greed. And so, Oliver lived happily, content with his adventures and the simple joys of life, always remembering that sometimes, having just enough was more than enough. The moral of this story: greed and wanting too much can lead to loss, while contentment and moderation allow us to enjoy what we have. It teaches us that sometimes, letting go of a little can help us achieve more happiness and avoid unnecessary trouble.